currently a freelance journalist and formerly a production crew lead for Ryerson Rams Athletics. I spent the last 4 years altogether, 3 years as a lead, working as a broadcast crew lead and producer for Ryerson's athletics broadcast on OUA TV. I currently am the writer. Well, I'm currently a writer at 49 Sportnet, which is one of the largest sites covering just exclusively U Sports in all of Canada. I also freelanced for the Eye Opener, the Mighty, which is a site for not for sports but for disability writing, and that's mainly where I'm at right now. I am very, very, and also I like I told you, I'm working. I spent the last 6 months working communications for the Guelph Storm as part of my internship. So that's basically where I'm at. I'm very, very, I'm still very green, I guess you could say, but I'm learning and I'm adding more and more stuff every single day. I never really thought about writing, well, not even just my story. I never really thought about writing in general. Like I said, I spent the better part of my last 3 years of my life working behind the scenes. And that's where I used to love writing. It used to be one of my favorite things to do. But around 2015, 2016, I kind of stopped. Thanks to the pandemic, back in March, I started writing for 49 Sportnet, and I sort of like reignited like some of that like interest. But then in May of 2020, I was reached out to by Jim Bazinski, who's the co-founder and editor at outsports.com of SB Nation. He had seen me comment on one of the stories that they had done, and I guess he saw that I have a pride flag in my Twitter bio, and it came out and it crossed the conversation that I'm openly out, and so he was like, do you have a story? Do you have an experience? Do you have a story? And I never really thought of that. I was like, why not? Across the next few months, I wrote that story, and then in July, it came out on Outsports. I got an email from Dale Scott, who's the retired MLB umpire, who had read my story. He basically told me, you don't realize it yet. Writing your story is gonna help somebody. That's sort of the lesson I've tried to carry since then. Not that my story specifically is some sort of like magical, amazing, like one of a kind thing. It's not, and that's sort of like what the point is. It's this whole idea that everyone has a story, everyone has an experience. Just when you talk about your experience, whatever it may be, it helps people realize the fact that everybody has these similar experiences. It's the same what I was carrying when I wrote the piece back in March. This idea like I'm writing this because somebody else in their own way has experienced something like this and may not have either the courage or the understanding or just know how to be able to say those thoughts or those feelings. So just maybe that if that helps somebody be able to say those thoughts or those feelings in their own way, then it's worth it. So a lot of people think it's a little bit it's more complicated than that, but I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just people when we talk to other people about what's with us, we realize we aren't alone. We realize there's people like us. I always hear whenever I talked about this, and whenever I hear other people talk about this, is, oh, well, hockey's not the only culture. There's like other sport cultures are bad too, and like that's true. But that's not the point though. You wouldn't see a pothole on the road and be like, oh well, all those other streets have potholes too. What's the big deal? No, you try and fix the problem that's in front of you. Question of like, how do you make hockey culture more inclusive? Whenever I think of that, I turn to what I've heard from Brock McGillis, probably the most famous name in this space, I guess you could say. The message he's always preached is the idea of you have to humanize the issue and humanize the experience. And I 100% agree with that. The idea that one of the biggest ways of separating the culture and the bubble of itself from the people is helping the people understand what the culture creates. And that's through hearing people. That's from hearing Brock. It's from maybe hearing me. It's from, and it's not just for an LGBT issues. It's for BIPOC issues. It's for ableism. It's for any of those sorts of things. People aren't bad. I believe people can be molded because of situations to do bad things. And when it comes to things like this, so one of the most important things is just the idea of showing people the impact, showing them what the effect it has on people is. I think the idea it's the same as a lot of other things. It's approaching somebody with the idea in the sport world that because they're different, they're less than. I will say, sport is inherently viewed as straight, it's inherently viewed as white, and it's inherently viewed as male. I'm two of those things. So I can even understand where that's coming from. So anything where you're coming at it from something different than those three centralized pillars of how sports is viewed, it creates this idea that somebody is not that it's somebody who's viewed as different. It creates the idea that they're not as good because they don't fit this mold. It's frustrating. It's all about the idea helping people understand both the impact of what going against these people is like, and that people who are different aren't less because of their differences. In fact, it's the differences that help make a more broader spectrum of people within the sport world. When you're trying to find new fans, when you're trying to find new ways to grow, and maybe this sounds really cynical, but you want to expand to that. You want to find as many people and as many connections as possible, because that's how you make a bigger market for yourself. Maybe the business side, the business side sounds cynical, but it's honestly it's a fair point to add to the idea. But even from the human side, you want to have as many people as possible from as many different areas as possible, creates as many different connections as possible. I will look at it from the idea of LGBTQ plus issues and the NHL and hockey is for everyone and performative, because there's a lot of stuff there. I think to some degree they do mean well. I think Pride Nights, and I think of all that marketing stuff, it's not done from a place of bad intentions. The trick is it's also done from a place of financial intention. It's the idea that if we put on a Pride Night and we show and we put rainbow tape on our sticks for 10 minutes, we can sell all this merch and we'll look good. And that's not good enough. And I'll go back to something that two things that Brock has told me that still stick with me. Pride Nights are not for the person in the rink. They're for the marketer. They're for the person in the front office. They're for people who don't actually deal with the impact of homophobic culture in sports. And the other thing he said, Pride Nights are like having a cup parade before you win the cup. You're celebrating the work as if you've actually accomplished something. And I love that quote. Where can you look at the NHL or the AHL or the ECHL, or where can you look anywhere and see in the actual rooms, in the actual experiences, what's changed in 20 years? Can we actually honestly look at the NHL right now and say that someone who's LGBTQ plus would actually feel comfortable playing? No, I don't agree. There's no actual impact on players and coaches from Pride Nights and from stick tape, and maybe they feel good for like 5 minutes, but it's not going to stop them the next time they swear at somebody. It's not going to stop them the next time they're in the locker room. Give them the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. I've heard this term, not cancel culture, accountability culture, holding players, holding coaches accountable. And then it's just having more and more people of diverse backgrounds in different parts of the game on coaching staffs, on boards, in front offices. Culture is impacted from people. It's not impacted from promotions and from fancy graphics. Well, it's in the sentence, accountability. Holding people accountable for their actions and giving them the opportunity, like I said, giving them the opportunity to learn. If people are open to learn and people are open to understand why homophobia is wrong, not or it's not even just wrong, the way it impacts people around them, their teammates, their fellow fans, how coaches it impacts their players, anything like that. If people are open to learn, and by virtue of that being held accountable for their actions, that's what will help us grow. And if those are the case, I think at least you deserve the opportunity to learn and the opportunity to grow as a human being and help the sport culture grow.